All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our bracket tips series where we teach you the ins and out of the March Madness bracket and hopefully give you a better shot to win your bracket pool this year in March Madness 2021. So without further ado, let's get into it. This is episode 1 of our bracket picks series. So moving on here, we have the contentious origins of the bracket. So where did the bracket come from? Where did it originate? You have some people who tell you that it was in 1839 in England at the Henley Royal Regatta, which was a rowing championship. They needed a way to essentially they could only race 3 boats at once, and they needed a way to keep track of who lost and who should move on. So they came up with this sort of single elimination tournament format. They might not have written it down like we do a normal bracket, but that sort of was the origins in sports of using that single elimination tournament format. And then in 1851, there was the World's Fair, or the precursor to the World's Fair, in London, England. And they had held this international chess tournament among a bunch of Europe's grand masters. And I believe they had 16 of them, and they needed a way to figure out, instead of doing a round robin, which is how things are normally, modern done in chess, is a round robin. Um, they needed a way to figure out how it should be done, and they kind of matched people up against each other by drawing straws, and then the winners of those would match up and match up and match up until there were 2 left. So whether it was 1839 or 1851, brackets in sports are pretty old. That's at least 150, 170 years now, at least, that brackets have been being used in sports. But moving on from there, where did the NCAA tournament, where did that bracket start out? So if you look here, in 1939 was the first time that there was really an NCAA tournament, if you will, and it was hosted in Evanston, Illinois, was the final between Oregon and Ohio State. And you can see that it was really 8 teams that were invited. You see Oregon, Texas, Oklahoma, Utah State, Villanova, Brown, Wake Forest, and Ohio State. And they were all invited to take part in this tournament. That was the NCAA tournament, and you can see that they held a third place game as well. So, regional third places and stuff like that. So, uh, besides that, that's where it started. Eight teams, and then in 1951, you can see it had expanded up to 16 teams. So that was over the course of 12 years. Now, moving on in 1956, you can see they started expanding on that 16 teams. It wasn't fully fleshed out yet. There's still teams with a bunch of buys and stuff, but they started moving on towards that 32 tier instead of just the 16 tier. So they started moving out to fill out that 32 tier, and by 1985, so 29 years later, they had filled out the basic 64 team tournament, and it stayed like that in 1985. It stayed like that all the way up until 2011 when they fully fleshed out a first four system. There were times for a while where there was a play-in game from the last at-large bid and the first team to miss. Then they decided, well, let's add more at-large teams because they're bigger draws and make the the 4 worst conference winners play in, and then the four sort of the worst 4 at-larges that get a bid. We can sort of take that and make them play in for the 2 spots. So that's uh that's where we've been at since 2011, right? We have a 68 team field, right? 64 in the round of 64, and then the first 4 sees two at-large games and 2 AQ games as well. So that's where we're at in terms of the bracket and how it's grown in the NCAA. So some dates to remember for this year's tournament. Again, the 14th of March, that's a Sunday, that's Selection Sunday. That's when the bracket is released. And then the 18th is when the first 4 is played. And the 19th and 20th, you'll see the round of 64. The 21st and 22nd, you'll see the round of 32. The 27th and 28th is the Sweet 16. 29th and 30th are the Elite 8. And then moving into April, on the 3rd is the Final 4. And the 5th is the National Championship. So those are just for you, putting stuff on your calendars and sort of understanding when things are this year. Those are the dates to remember for this year's NCAA tournament. So, like I said, the goal of this series is just to give you a basic understanding of the bracket and hopefully make you better informed when you're making your picks come next Sunday, the 14th. So this is going to be a 7-video series. This is the first of 7 videos as sort of an overview of the whole series and just an introduction to the bracket in general. So now that you know that there's a 68-team bracket and you understand how it comes together and where it's come from, stay tuned for our next 6 videos. You can see them listed out here. How to pick your first round upsets, how to identify a Cinderella, how far to take your Cinderella, how to pick your Sweet 16, how to pick which top seeds will fall first, and how to pick your national champion. Stay tuned for those videos to come throughout the week. Again, I'm Rob from Hoop Power. Make sure you subscribe, like the video, drop a comment, And, drop us a follow on Twitter and Instagram if you feel so inclined. And stay tuned as Hoop Power Analytics gives you the best insights into college basketball throughout the March Madness season. Thank you for watching.